I'm going to do a brief video in which I say, as per the title, that you should get vaccinated. Over different fighting different little wars. I have people who I would consider vaccine hesitant among the people that listen to me, and and plus, I make this my vocation for part of my life. I do. So I thought, well, you probably fucking should, given that you talk into a camera. You should probably talk into a camera about this thing, even if you consider it, Tom, to be bleeding obvious. So you should just get vaccinated. I take the piss and do commentary that's often very unflattering of a variety of movements, fringe political movements, which I have varying degrees of distaste for over the years. I know. But I do want it to be made clear that I don't harbour, and I'd be irrational if I did harbour the same level of distaste for, say, anti-vaxxers or vaccine hesitant people, I should say, or some aspects of the anti-lockdown movement that I do for, say, my older wheelhouse of far right, alt right, Nazi types. Of course, for someone who's partial to the messages from prominent anti-vaxxers and the anti-lockdown movement, and has been swayed by those ideas to the degree that they don't want to get the vaccine or are doubtful about some aspect of it, I can understand your doubts, and I want you to know that you're not unwelcome here. If I'm doing a video commenting on how much of a grifter that Avi Yemeni is, or Monica Smith, or one of the other range of shameless opportunists as part of that movement, and I criticise their views, it's because they're the top dogs of a movement that has zero accountability, and they have a financial or a political imperative that drives their conspiracist messaging. There's money in it for them too. So when they talk about it, saying that there's money in it for big pharma, you cannot exclude that there's money in it for them as well. And I said this to someone who asked me, and they're one of my fans, commenting under a video I did the other day. They asked me, so do you blindly trust government or big pharma? It's a pertinent question, because if you're out there saying, I think you should get vaccinated, then you have duly already been typecast by the anti-vax or the anti-lockdown scenes as a sheep. With regards to government, I would say, well, fuck you. I've been participating in activism, whether it be environmentalism, refugee rights, a whole range of things that make it very clear that in many respects and not just as a person who ascribes to anarchist principles, but just me as in my activist record that's publicly on display, it's quite clear I'm not a sap to anything this fucking government does or its police wing. And the other question is about big pharma. Do I just blindly trust what they say? No. I'm well aware that big pharma has, as in pharmaceutical multinationals, have, an enormous financial imperative under capitalism to profit off of people's ill health and wellness and, the medications that can come with that. But that's capitalism for you. And the one big relief for me with, say, big pharma is that they are, at the very least, beholden to a series of regulations and governing legislation that reins them in to a degree. Now, they've done lots of evil shit over the years, but they are, to a degree, held responsible to governments and reined in or held in check by legislation. So there's quite stringent regulations that govern what big pharma can and cannot do. Now, will they attempt to profit off of ill health and wellness anyway? Well, yes, it's capitalism, and they're conglomerates of, they're a series of enormous companies. That's what everyone does under fucking capitalism. But we have to remember that there is money in it too for big anti-pharma and the people at the head of the wellness and the anti-lockdown and the various, sort of associated conspiracist scenes, including the anti-vaccine, of course, that say that you can use fucking flaxseed oil or whatever to buffer up your immune system against deadly viruses. There is billions of dollars in it for those people, okay? But they aren't held in check by any governing legislation, whether it be because vitamin or dietary supplement sectors or associated ones have spent many, many years and many, truckloads of money lobbying various governments, American, Australian and others, to not be held accountable for their fucking snake oil. But also, if you're a Monica Smith or an Avi Yemeni, there is no one holding you accountable in any sense whatsoever. If you're not a real journalist, you aren't really bound by any journalistic codes. If you're not a doctor, as with Dr. Andrew Wakefield, ex-Dr. Andrew Wakefield, you don't have any obligation to hold to any medical standards, standards of medical practice, or hold to any code. And if a lot of your vaccine hesitancy is coming from, you have to be honest, is coming from messaging that comes from these sectors online, if you've been reading messages from anti-vax people, then you do have to ask yourself, as you should with anyone, whether it be big pharma, big government, who's holding these people in check? Is anyone holding them in check? And am I being lied to? Because as I say, there's a financial and a political imperative for these snake oil salesmen. But there ain't no legislation guiding them. I don't claim to be a fucking medical expert. God knows we've got enough fake ones online throughout the past year or two of the pandemic. We've all seen that. I'm going to put a link to an amazing New Yorker article called The Plague Year. It's a huge read. It'll take you a couple of hours. But I think it's really worth it. And one amazing thing about that article is that it interviews the people, these fucking heroes, who've helped to create these vaccines. It helps to tell the story of the journey that they took, from the AIDS vaccine to now, in terms of creating the vaccine that's now saving millions of lives. Read that to get a bit of an understanding of what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're injecting into you. I think that's better than reading some Facebook post from a con artist anti-vaxxer. And do remember that these anti-vaxxers and such, who have, again, a financial imperative to lie to you, they have a habit of misrepresenting statistics. There are databases of vaccine adverse events that are self-reporting. So, of course, any of these people have the ability to go in there and spam mass self-reports of vaccine adverse events, and they fucking do it. There's a series of death tolls about vaccine-related deaths in there that are constantly misreported by these people because they're talking about anyone who dies after getting a vaccine. But as I said in my previous video when I was looking at that anti-vax truth truck being driven around by Monica Smith, well, if I die tomorrow, but 20 years ago I got a tetanus shot, that does not mean that I died from a tetanus vaccine. Do you know what I mean? And it's this kind of misreporting that makes these people so unreliable. I mean, if you look at the people at the top of the anti-vax world, Andrew Wakefield and the like, the level of misreporting and financial self-interest that's guided them from day one just makes them so systemically unreliable. And their whole core message is that you shouldn't trust big institutions. Well, they're as untrustworthy, frankly, but they aren't being held in check by any legislation. And as I said, asking yourself the question, am I being lied to, and who's holding these people in check? If you can't find anything that's holding these people in check, any responsibility, any kind of legislative responsibility that these people have, then if they stand to make money from you believing them, they're probably just fucking lying to you. So in saying this, I know our government fucked up the fucking rollout. How do you even fucking get one? Actually, if you go on nowadays to the vaccine database in Australia and you bring up, if you get told that you're eligible, which you should do by now, then there's a hot doc thing where you can choose doctors near you online and book yourself in. Now, I'm actually booked in for one about 1 or 2 months into the future. you're not going to get one anytime soon. But Australia has just announced that we're about to receive another big batch of Pfizer, so you should be able to get in there. And of course, apparently there's AstraZeneca to spare as well. So please read the article attached, and if you're vaccine hesitant, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable around this page. I do tend to mock the big dogs at the top of these moves, but that's because I resent them and I see them as grifters. That doesn't mean that people who have a few concerns about vaccines aren't welcome here. I just wanted to tell you, to be plain speaking for a moment and say, for whatever it's worth, please go and get the vaccine. So from me and Chimpy, look at the camera. Look at the camera. You look like an idiot. From me and Chimpy, just go and get vaccinated, bruh.